So the next section we're going to get into after getting past bases and acids is we're going to talk a little bit about the macromolecules that are basically the building blocks of you, the things that we find in our foods that we eat that are the building blocks of what we have inside of our body. The first of these are carbohydrates, which are the fuel for living machines. What this basically is a large source of our energy. You guys probably eat a ton of carbs on a daily basis. All of your crackers, your pasta, your rice, your breads, your cereals. We eat a lot of carbohydrates, and the more carbohydrates you have, the more energy you have. But conversely, if your body doesn't use all of that energy, it can be converted into fat. And so carbohydrates include macromolecules that function as food. We've talked about them a lot out there in the news because we talk about things like low-carb diets, high-carb diets. You may have heard of carb loading if you're an athlete. You may have heard about the needs to take in fiber. And so basically we're going to look next at what are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates contain the elements C, H, and O, so carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. They are the primary source of fuel for organisms, and they are the things that give us our cell structure. Here you can see all the things that we love to eat, our bagels, our bread, our cereals, our rice, our corn. Anything that's starchy is going to be a carbohydrate. And so carbohydrates, when they're broken down, and they're usually broken down pretty quickly, are going to be broken down into carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And when these bonds break between the carbon and the hydrogen, the energy is going to be released very quickly, and so that's why we use it as our primary source of fuel for our cellular mechanisms. Here you can see the shape of what a molecule of glucose looks like. It's got 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens in it, and it's got that very specific ratio. And the symbol for glucose is that, like we saw in the taste receptors. Energy that we get from carbohydrates is found in those chemical bonds that are putting the C's and the H's and the O's together. So the take-home message about carbohydrates would be that they're, one, the primary fuel for running all of our cellular machinery. So they make the structure of what our bodies are and the way that we function, and that they have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the same ratios as they do water units. And so the carbon and hydrogen bonds of carbohydrates are going to store a great deal of energy. They're easily broken apart by organisms. So the simplest carbohydrates, you may have heard of simple carbohydrates versus complex carbohydrates, which we usually say in food that complex carbohydrates are better for you because they're broken down slower by your body. But if you need energy really fast, then taking in things like glucose or the simple sugars is going to be your way to get your fastest energy. I'm diabetic, so these sugars are going to affect my blood sugar very, very much. And if I'm having a low blood sugar, the first thing I do is take a simple sugar in, things like candy or juice or jelly. Those things are going to raise your blood sugar very, very quickly. But things like complex carbohydrates, like your high fiber, high grain breads, you wouldn't take that for a low blood sugar because you'd be waiting a long time to get the energy from that. So something that is a monosaccharide, that's something that's called a simple sugar, so 3 to 6 carbon atoms. Glucose is going to provide this quick fuel for your cellular activity. It's temporarily stored inside of your body as glycogen, and if it's not used at all, if you're not using it for the energy that you need, then it's going to be eventually converted into fat. So those of you that love to eat simple sugars, that can lead to weight problems. Glucose, as we saw here, is the glucose in your blood, or what gives you the blood sugar. As energy is needed, if the person takes in those simple sugars and takes that glucose, the molecular bonds are broken down by your cells and they're released as energy. So that's why somebody who wants to go out and run a race may go about doing carb loading and taking in lots of glucose really fast. However, if you sit down and eat a big bowl of ice cream or drink a big drink of juice and then you go to bed, then the energy is going to be stored short term in your liver as glycogen, and it's there ready for you to use up if you need a burst of energy. However, if you don't need that energy in the long term, it's going to be converted into fat, and that is not necessarily a good thing when you have lots of it. So carb loading, any of you that are athletes may eat a high carbohydrate meal before you go out and use these large stores of energy. That may be getting it from a protein drink or getting it from something that is, in this case, like they're talking about healthy pastas. Those give you a big rush of energy so that you can go about doing whatever your exercise is that you're attempting to do. Why do dieters lose large amounts of water weight during the first few days of a diet? That can be something that's really frustrating if you're going on a diet because you're trying to lose weight and then you lose 5 pounds really fast, and then it may take a long time to lose those next 5 pounds. And that's because when we lose weight, at first we lose what's called water weight. And that's because the water molecules that are found inside of the glycogen are stored at about 4 to 1, and you'll lose lots of water, but until you start getting rid of that actual fat, you're going to have just lost water weight right at the beginning, and that can be really frustrating for dieters. So glucose is the most important carbohydrate to living organisms. Those simple sugars is where we get most of our energy from, and then that glucose, once it's found in the bloodstream, can be measured in the form of blood sugar, can be stored as glycogen in the muscles and the liver for later use, or if it's stored in the long term because you're taking in so much of it, it's eventually converted into fats. So many complex carbohydrates, there we're talking about simple carbohydrates, but many complex carbohydrates are time-released packets of energy. So more than one sugar is a complex carbohydrate. If they are a disaccharide, that means there's 2 sugars, things like sucrose and lactose. Lactose is the sugar that's found in milk that people can be allergic to. And polysaccharides are those that have more than one unit of sugar or many units of sugar. Those are things like starches and things like cellulose. Starches are found in a lot of our foods. Cellulose is found in the plant materials that we eat. And so this chemical fuel is it's ingested, and here we have glucose and fructose. Fructose is the sugar that's found in fruit, and if it's taken in, these 2 sugars together are called sucrose. That's things that are table sugar. And when it's digested, the bond is broken between these simple sugars, and it can very easily be broken down to get the energy out of them. So that's why fructose, or fruit sugars, give you a big burst of energy. In polysaccharides, they're found in complex carbohydrates. They have these long chains of sugars, like here is starch, can have hundreds of glucose molecules all bonded together. It takes a long time to break all of these bonds, and so it takes a long time to get the energy out of those complex polysaccharides. So depending on their structure, and these dietary carbohydrates can lead to quick but brief or slow but persistent increases in blood sugar. So if I need my blood sugar to go up really, really quickly, if I drink fruit juice, it's going to spike very quickly. My blood sugar goes up very, very quickly, and then it's going to drop off. So if any of you have ever seen your kids or your cousins or nephews go to a birthday party They eat all this sugar, they get really excited, they run around, they get all that energy out, and then afterwards they crash and burn, where they get really cranky and they've used up all of that energy, and it makes them feel really bad. After I have a blood sugar reaction, I always feel really bad. But these complex carbohydrates, like in this case oatmeal, it's going to bring your blood sugar up very slowly, and then it's going to continue releasing the energy evenly over a long period of time. That's why if you just drank a big glass of juice in the morning, you'd have energy initially, but you'd start to have your blood sugar crash by lunchtime. But if you eat something like oatmeal, it's going to last you a long time up until your next meal that you get to. So not all carbohydrates that you eat are digestible. Just like we were talking about fruits, talking about milk sugars, talking about glucose and starch. There are some carbohydrates that you eat that are not digestible. Chitin, which is the carbohydrate that's found in the shells of, this one's a lobster, or that's why you don't eat the shells of crayfish or of shrimp. Because you can't break down chitin. It's not digestible within your body. Cellulose is also not digestible, but we eat a lot of it. Not wood, obviously we're not eating trees, but we do eat a lot of cellulose that comes from our plant materials. The chitin and the cellulose in these cases are what give these structures their rigidity. Makes trees able to grow up very tall. The chitin enables this hard exoskeleton around the outside of crustaceans. So cellulose that comes from plant materials is indigestible to humans. It's sometimes called fiber when we think of it in our diet. So if you eat lots of fiber, it passes right through your body without being digested. And it has lots of health benefits, but the first one that you may see is that it makes you poop a lot. And so things like apples have tons of fiber in them. You may eat high fiber cereals that help to clean out your digestive tract. Also, because they're not digested, you're not going to get as many calories from them, and it helps to make sure you don't end up with colon polyps. So those little sticky areas inside of your colon. So fiber is very good for you. Cellulose is very good for you, but you're obviously not going to eat wood. Some of you may feel like you're eating wood when you're eating these types of cereals. So fiber is also called roughage. I don't really know that it's called that much anymore, but I remember my parents calling it that. Like if you're sitting down to eat a big old salad, my dad would say, oh, you're eating a big bowl of roughage. It can help to reduce colon cancer. In our termites, it played an ecological role in that they would digest it, and then the bacteria that are inside of their digestive system are going to use it in order to extract the materials from it. So fiber, very, very good for you for many reasons. So eat lots of vegetables. It's good for you.